following in the footsteps of the X3 NFC. A new POCO is here. Is this the best upgrade for your money? This is my POCO X3 Pro in-depth review. Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and here on launch day of the When Power Meets Speed POCO event. Full pricing to be revealed of the devices coming out today, but I have with me to share the POCO X3 Pro and the POCO F3 that I've had a chance to spend some very quality time with, and in this video we're going to be looking at the X3 Pro. Is this the true successor and upgrade to the POCO X3 NFC? But before we get started, let's have a look at the unboxing. Talking about design, and at 9.4 millimeters, 215 grams, this is a pretty hefty device. Similar to the X3 NFC, we're using Gorilla Glass 6 on the front and a plastic frame with glass on the back as well. And I like this two-tone matte and glossy back with a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, SIM tray, IR blaster, and you have the old capacitive side-mounted fingerprint scanner and volume rocker. But this blue is a gorgeous color, I must say. And the camera module is similar to the X3 NFCs. Now, compared to a Redmi Note 10 Pro, I'm preferring these more modern designs, but the POCO X3 Pro is still a good looking device. You know, when it comes to design, you know what you're getting with this POCO X3 Pro. Now, I do like the two-tone matte glossy texture, and the logo is big, but it's very subtle, and the design is not that much of a departure from the POCO X3 NFC. And with a 6.67-inch LCD display with HDR10 and 240Hz touch sampling rate, this is a very similar panel to the one we saw on the POCO X3 NFC. And that doesn't mean it's a bad panel, with really solid viewing angles, no ghosting, and the punch hole, while not tiny, still is very modern looking. And on saturated mode, I really do enjoy the look of this panel. Now, of course, it is not going to be to the level of an AMOLED display like on Redmi Note 10 Pro, but you will find, even in outdoor use, this is a very bright, very crisp panel, and I do like it. And you'll enjoy any content on this POCO X3 Pro, including YouTube and Netflix, and it's an immersive experience despite having the punch hole in the center. And with DRM info, you'll have L1 security level out of the box on this POCO X3 Pro, so it's an L1 party here on Frankie Tech. You know, in this type of lighting, an LCD display is just going to be kind of like this, very hard to see in direct sunlight. But the nice thing about it, of course, you know what you're getting, 120 Hz LCD with similar bezels and a center punch hole like the POCO X3 NFC. But now talking about performance, and this is the star of the show, I believe, the Snapdragon 860 with 6 gigs of DDR4X RAM and 128 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage with a nearly 500,000 Antutu score. This device flies, guys, offering a flagship level performance at a mid-range price. Guys, this chipset is legit. And with MIUI 12.0.2 on board and Android 11, everything flies and is very smooth on this POCO X3 Pro. And with the Adreno 640 and liquid cooling technology 1.0 Plus, you'll be able to just keep swimming on this POCO X3 Pro. Oh yeah! And the Snapdragon 860 is a beast of a chipset, definitely a step above most of the other chipsets in the mid-range space that I've checked out. Now, you're not getting 5G though on this device, but considering you're getting nearly flagship spec scores on this POCO X3 Pro, I think you will be very happy with the performance of this device. And another highlight is battery life. With a 5160 mAh battery, I've been getting around 7 hours of screen on time with 120 Hz on this POCO X3 Pro. But that does mean with the extra battery, you get a slightly heftier device in this case. But with fast charging of 33 watts, I was able to go from 0 to 100 on the X3 Pro in 1 hour and 13 minutes, which I believe is a very respectable charging time for this price segment. And it's a side-mounted capacitive fingerprint scanner, just like the POCO X3 NFC, and it's very fast. I have no issues with the scanner, but I do wish we had seen the ARC type sensor that we see on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And the vibration motor, while good, is just not the best one I've used. You're going to want to step it up to the POCO F3 for a better haptic feedback, and you can see here, it's kind of the old style vibration motor similar to the X3 NFCs, nothing too special here. And talking about comms, with Wi-Fi 5, NFC, Bluetooth 5.0 on this device, they're not the latest comms, but on the plus side, you do get SD card support. Call quality was also excellent on this POCO X3 Pro, but let's talk about it. No 5G support with this phone, and that may be a deal breaker for some of you, but considering the price point of this phone and the markets it will be playing in, I think it's not an issue. And now the audio speaker test, dual speakers on both the X3 Pro and the POCO F3, but plus points to the X3 Pro, it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Let's have a listen. So the good news, whether you pick up the F3 or the X3 Pro, you're going to have the same quality dual speaker experience on both phones. And that is good to hear. And wrapping up with the cameras, we have a 48 megapixel IMX582 main camera on this POCO X3 Pro. That's right, it's a lower quality camera than the X3 NFCs with an 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensors. We also have a 20 megapixel front camera with 1080p 60 FPS video, which is positive to see at this price point. Now I gotta say, the biggest regret of this phone has got to be the cameras. Kind of going back from the X3 NFC's 64 megapixel main camera to a 48 megapixel. But this is definitely not the release to get if you're looking on an upgrade for the cameras from the POCO X3 NFC. And here I share my camera samples with the POCO X3 Pro. And this is rear-facing video on the POCO X3 Pro. And guys, I've been running into a little bit of a audio issue on this phone, shooting in rear video. It seems to be clipping a little bit, and maybe we will see in a software update that is coming. This is pre-release software, and this is front-facing video, vlog style here on the POCO X3 Pro, shooting in 1080p 30, no 1080p 60 though on this phone, which is a pity. But listen to the mics, hear how they sound. And stay tuned, guys. Lots of videos coming on these devices. But hit me up in the comments. What do you think? And now the final verdict. What are my thoughts on this POCO X3 Pro? Here's Frankie Tech to wrap us up. All in all, guys, if you're looking for a solid upgrade from the POCO X3 NFC, minus the cameras, this phone will do the job. It's delivering nearly flagship level performance for a terrific price, and I do believe the POCO X3 Pro, while not the most exciting POCO release we've seen, is definitely a solid device and will provide everything you need in a near flagship level smartphone. But hit me up in the comments. What are your thoughts on this POCO X3 Pro? Is this the right device for you? And are you excited about this release? Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for future updates. Thanks once again to POCO for sending these out. Go check out my POCO F3 full review as well if you haven't already. And this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one.